Hello, hello, and hello. Welcome to the Ron Settles Memorial Foundation Say His Name Too talk series, part two, with Mr. Wayne Chaney Sr. Thank you so much, Mr. Chaney. We are so happy to have you here today. Mr. Chaney is Ronnie's best friend. And so to have found him and to see him on our talk today, I'm just super excited. Uh, Good to have you here, sir.
Well, I appreciate it, and it's an honor. Ronnie created such a legacy that I'm honored. There's so many great people around Ronnie coming up. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. So our own Annie Strong Mackey will be speaking with Mr. Chaney Sr. today. I have to say, in seeing you, Mr. Chaney, I was 9 when Ronnie was murdered. And so I have some very faint memories of him and some very fond memories of him as a big cousin. And so in seeing you and seeing your picture once we made contact, I had to wonder, it just made me wonder what Ronnie would look like today. Like what handsome 60-year-old, my cousin would look like, So I just had to share that with you. It was just one of those things. I guess it comes with dealing with such a tragedy in a family like that. So yes. So, okay. So I am not going to delay my welcome. I just want to mention a couple of things. I want to reiterate again, we had our talk earlier this month with Rodney Strong. And just to describe, for those of you who may not have tuned in earlier this month, the purpose of the Ron Settles Memorial Foundation is to continue the years, it's up to 40 years now, of the pursuit of justice for all of the injustice, and then also to maintain memoriam. There have been several things that have taken place since Ronnie's death that my family has been involved in, particularly with the Cochran firm and other things, like rallies and people. We've seen people in more recent rallies have signs about Ronnie, and that's always nice to see that. Wow. Good. And yes, and so the other thing that I wanted to say is that we value everyone's support, and we need it. We need your continuous support. One of the things that we're doing, that we're starting off with as we are a new foundation, is we are starting a scholarship fund in which we will be awarding students who plan to study criminal justice and law. And so we're strategically, yes, sir. We are strategically trying to change the system of injustice and inequality. And so that being said, we invite you to like, follow, and share and donate. No amount is too small. We'll be showing a flyer of all of our giving platforms and our website later on. And Annie, you now have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Donna, for that warm welcome. Welcome everyone to our second series in our Black History Month talk, Say His Name Too. And again, welcome Mr. Wayne Chaney Sr. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you on the phone, and I'm honored to be here today to speak with you in this interview process. So welcome to you.
Well, thank you again.
Great. So we will go ahead and get started. For anyone that doesn't know, my name is Annie Strong Mackey, and I am the VP of Marketing and Communications for the Ron Settles Memorial Foundation. And as well, I am Ronnie's youngest first cousin. So I am just delighted to do this series on behalf of the foundation because myself, I'm learning so much. I didn't get to know him or meet him because I was so young. I actually wasn't even born before he passed. So it's just a delight for me, for you to share your knowledge that you have about him and share your history that you have with him. So to get started with my first question for you, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, a long time Long Beach resident, born in St. Mary's Hospital, went to Poly, attended Cal State Long Beach, and currently work for the fire department. Um, and sit on several boards, vice president of the airport, the vice president of Goodwill, Salvation Army, and just really trying to give back, make a difference. So I stay pretty busy.
That's definitely a good thing. And thank you to all of our first responders, all of our essential workers. We greatly appreciate everything that you all are doing for us. So tell me, do you recall how you met? First, let me say, you're Ronnie's best friend and you call him the Bull. Is that right?
The Bull.
Yes.
Yeah. I've been knowing him. Helen, Ronnie's mother, was friends with my mother. And we're talking about the 60s. And it was pretty interesting. My parents really didn't let people in their home. They were very outgoing, but they didn't have a lot of close friends. And the Settles were close to my family. And they would visit and vice versa. My parents would go over and visit the Settles. And that's how we formed the relationship, Ronnie and myself. We're the same age. And I would spend the night, vice versa. He'd come over our house, we'd watch movies, popcorn, just being boys. We played basketball, baseball, we played touch football in the street. And yeah, a long history. And then we went separate ways when we went to high school. I went to Poly High School and he attended Banning. But we stayed in close contact. And it was, you know, you just don't really think about it. It was a foundation that was built by us just being friends, being kids, and just doing what kids normally do. And that's what made it so so horrible when we found out that he was killed, and it was devastating. It shook up the entire city. I mean, people that I know, it was like losing a dignitary. It was just unbelievable. The whole entire city was in mourning, and in disbelief that this happened to someone with such a promising future. So it was tough. It was very tough, but he was well mannered, a lot of fun, funny, a great athlete, and he was my friend.
That's so nice to hear. Just the affections and sincerity that comes anytime that I ask someone, how do you remember Ronnie? How did you grow up? So I appreciate you sharing that with me. So let me ask you, your mother and my Aunt Helen, they were very close. Did the family, did you guys go to church together at all?
Right, they were members of the church. You know, what's funny is it started out as friendship. Then we were spiritually drawn to the same church, and it just went on. It went beyond just being friends and living in the same community. We were fellowshipping together, so it was very special. In fact, Darnell Settles, Ron's father, became one of our trustees, actually overseeing the future of Long Beach, helping them with real estate, and financially balancing the books. So he was an asset. I mean, the growth, Antioch is on Pine right now, an amazing building, which is significant for a church to be on Pine. And a lot of that had to do with Darnell Settles guiding us through our financial future and investing in real estate. In fact, he helped me with a piece of property. So it was, Darnell created the legacy that we really enjoy and celebrate today.
Okay, so with that, would you describe them as sort of as pillars of the community?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone loves the Settles. And Ronnie's mom was pretty funny. It just bubbly, great sense of humor. And, you know, it's funny because a lot of times my mom would not just really kind of at the house. That was just kind of like our unwind, our sacred place. And I would listen to them in the kitchen, just laughing and making noise. And it was a genuine love. So it was really kind of neat to see them. I mean, because of this, it gave me an opportunity to kind of reflect on really their relationship. And it was solid. And I mean, even with Darnell, for him to be close to my dad, it was something that didn't happen in the church for us.
Absolutely. And that just goes to show the character of the family, yours and the Settles family. It just amazing, amazing. I hear the same
Yeah.
stories across the board. Anytime I ask about my Aunt Helen, I didn't get an opportunity to meet her either because I wasn't born yet. But every time I hear the same story, she was funny, she was caring, sweet, compassionate. And I'm sure
Mhm.
all of that just trickled down the family bloodline down to our cousin Ronnie. So thank you
Yes.
for sharing that. Thank you. So you mentioned to me as you all approached high school years, you went to separate high schools. And
Mhm.
during that time, Ron did play sports. Did you play sports also? And if so, did you guys ever cross paths at all?
No, never. Ronnie was killing it at Banning. I mean, he was just phenomenon. And I played basketball, but I only known him to just be focused really at that time um, with football and all of his efforts. So we never crossed paths. We played at the park, but it was embarrassing. He was a pretty good athlete.
Right, right. So from there, we do know that Ron went on to play college football. He was a scholar, an
Mhm.
athlete. He was also being recruited by the NFL to
Mhm.
to go professional. So during those college years, do you recall, were you able to attend in any of his games, or did you guys stay close during that time at all?
Well, it seems like we went different directions at that time. We stayed in contact, but he was in a different world now. And then I was focused doing the things and helping at the church. And we were just really, for kids, busy time.
Mhm.
Yeah, he had a lot going on, and I was involved heavily in the city with the church and playing sports and going to school and everything. And then I went in the military, and he was at Cal State Long Beach, and just went a different separate paths, but always stayed in contact.
Good, good. That sounds really good. So, as many of us know, and for our new visitors to our Facebook that may not know about the history of Ron Settles, he was riding through Signal Hill, California, on his way to work to serve uh, his community. And he was pulled over by the Signal Hill Police Department. He was from there taken to the police station. And the next morning, on June the 2nd, 1981, he was found hung and beaten in his jail cell. The police did say that it was a suicide. From there, we know that no police officers were indicted, but based on a coroner's report, the coroner did decide that Ronnie did pass at the hands of another. So, in other words, it was not a suicide. So tell me, let's go into depth about where were you when you first heard that Ronnie passed? What were your emotions? What were you dealing with at the time?
Oh, we were in disbelief. I mean, you see things on the news, you hear about these stories, but it never really hits home. I mean, we're it's criminal what has happened to other people, but it never was really someone that I was close to. I mean, it was like losing a brother. So it was just disbelief. We were just walking around. It was hard to wrap our hands around what had actually happened. It just was not true. And over time, more information started coming in, and um, yeah, the entire city. I mean, it wasn't just our congregation, but it was significant because the impact that Ronnie had on so many people's lives and the Settle family, the legacy, it really hit Long Beach. It shook Long Beach, and not just the Black community.
Yes, yes. I've heard that the impact was so extreme that there were the example would be if you correlate it to the Black Lives Matter movement that we're having now, it was the same thing then. So
yes, absolutely. This created something, an awareness, just a commitment to getting to the truth, and this kind of changed policy, the way law enforcement operates. This was significant. To my knowledge, it was a game changer as far as everything I've read, as far as how they deal with stuff, how the organization completely changed, and new faces.
And tell me a little bit more about that. So you said that due to this, there were some organizational changes that occurred and new faces coming in. What was that like? What were those changes?
Changes were that they cleaned house at the police department, specifically Signal Hill. Now it takes time, but brought in a new chief. They changed some of the policies as far as how they deal with people that are detained, and more accountability, so something like this doesn't happen again. So these are models. Everyone in the country is looking at this, and agencies, I think smart agencies, are going, this could happen to us. How do we change what we're doing, our behavior, in order for us not to be like an organization that makes that type of mistake?
Definitely, definitely. So let me ask you, being that his family had such an impact in the church, do you recall the impact that his death had on the church? And was the church active in any of the protests that occurred at that time?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. I remember a couple of protests that I attended, and it looked like I mean, everyone was there. It wasn't just I mean, there were students, there were people there with children, there were families. It mirrors exactly what we see today. This is really about right and wrong, and it brings everyone together. But you got to think about when this happened. This was still culturally different because organizations, pretty much wasn't the accountability that we see today. So this was a Black Lives Matter many, many years ago. And it was effective as far as mission accomplished, as far as some of the changes. We still have a long way to go, but this was happening regularly, and no one really had the resources or the ability to really make people accountable. This was different. This held people's feet to the fire, and even with city council members, changes in that, new elected officials that were on board with unacceptable. So this is a Black Lives Matter movement for way before anything really significant like that. So this was, I think, groundbreaking as far as the effective change that happened and the people that were on board with it. You got to think, what we see today is nothing like what it was back then, where people were empowered to do things to people, and there was really no accountability. It was safe to do things to people, and you pretty much felt you're not going to get in trouble, or they'll circle the wagons to protect me. And that kind of promotes that type of, I think, lawless behavior. So I think that this was significant. It was just, we think about just the tragedy of losing Ronnie, but if you look at the people's lives that were saved because of Ronnie, the change, the institutions, not here, all over the country. So significant.
Absolutely, absolutely. And sometimes you have to be that pillar to create the change. Now, for those of our guests that may not know, our family did hire the late Johnny Cochran to support us in a civil lawsuit that was brought against the Department of Law in Signal Hill. And we did win that lawsuit. So do you think that that particular Johnny Cochran being involved in the lawsuit, do you think it elevated Ron's story to a different level? Because you just mentioned that this is that back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, this has been happening. You know, Black people have been dying at the hands of law enforcement, but it doesn't reach media like this story did. It has such a huge impact. Do you think that Mr. Cochran being involved with the lawsuit had an impact on that at all?
Oh, absolutely. If you look at, he's a brilliant attorney, and he had some high profile cases. This was significant though. And I think when you have someone that really feels the pain of the family, this really wasn't about promoting his business. It wasn't really about getting paid. He felt the pain of the settled family and the community. And with his skill level and his commitment to ethics, it was the perfect team at the right time and with the right family. There's so many things, you know, I'm big on it's the will of God. And even though it's some of, just most tough things we have to go through, I honestly believe everything happens for a reason, even if we don't understand it. And Helen always talked about her faith. And in the interview I was watching, they never wavered with it. They were like soldiers. They were not, they not just losing their son, but they were taking a stand for my kids, the ones that weren't even born. That's what they did. And only God can kind of get you through a tragedy like that, because most people fall apart. They can't live. They doubled down and hired the Cochran firm, and they moved forward and were very successful. So I miss Ronnie, but I think that he saved so many people by his sacrifice.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. I'm so thankful to have the family that I have. Even my parents, they have made it a point. I remember being small, 7 years old, and my parents sitting me down and having me watch the story of Ron Settles, telling me about my cousin, telling us, even my brother, having the talks. When you start driving, you have to be like this because you can get pulled over simply because of the color of your skin. Having those stories with us and telling us, this is our family history, this is our family legacy, this happened to us. And so we have to take this story and use it as an example and help keep Ron's legacy alive. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here with the Memorial Foundation. For those that don't know, like our president Donna did mention, we are partnering with the Cochran firm. The Cochran firm does have 3 locations, one in Memphis, one in Atlanta, and one in LA County. We're offering 2 $2,000 scholarships to students in those cities that are focusing on law enforcement and as well criminal justice. And through the Cochran firm as well, we're offering internships to those students as well.
Wow, good job.
Yes, so we're definitely committed to the mentorship aspect, to creating those future leaders that can help be part of the movement, part of the entire culture, to uplift, to educate, and to support. So that's what we're doing here with the family and as well the board. So tell me, since Ronnie's passing, what are some different ways that you have tried to uplift Ronnie's legacy and continue his legacy throughout his passing?
You know what? It's conversation because everyone's talking about, even when you look at the Black Lives Matter movement, everyone talks about the injustice and even some current, um, wrongful deaths. Um, but when you talk about Ronnie, they go, yes, yes. And I think just having the conversation keeps his legacy alive. And trust me, it comes up because that's a conversation that we always talk about. Seems like it comes up regularly and in groups with other professional individuals. And you talk about Ronnie, you talk about what the family went through. Um, it's important. You wanna, even though it's small, it's not a scholarship, it's not really mentoring. It's really keeping the dialogue going to remember Ronnie and really his role in what we see today. So the conversation, I think, is really important. But
Absolutely.
but grooming and mentoring is our future.
Absolutely. I think it's very important that we often hear those hashtags of maybe your Sandra Bland's or your George Floyd. But like you said, the conversation, keeping the name going. That's why we're adamant about having
Mhm.
this series during Black History Month. Say his name too, because this happened years ago, and unfortunately, it's still happening. So that
Mhm.
means there's still much work to be done. I love that you're trying to focus on the mentorship aspect of it and continuing the conversation just about his history, his name, his legacy. So tell me, what is your most significant memory spending time with him?
It was always just really kind of playing sports and stuff like that. And then, he was kind of a practical joker and stuff like that. So, yeah, he had me run out. He says, "Wait, come on!" I said, "I'm in the shower. Come on, come out. Hey, there's somebody out here." And he had me run out. I had a towel around me, and he locked the door. And I'm like going, "Let me in, dude. Let me in." But it was funny because he just played a practical joke on me, just like firefighters do today. And it was fun. It was fun, and he laughed his tail off. I wasn't laughing until I got inside. But and I'm glad that my the walkway was just like protected, but he was just goofing off with me and stuff. So that was a typical kid prank, but a lot of it is just really kind of the conversation. I mean, I think the things that are really significant for me is Ronnie's maturity. I mean, just the conversations you have about right and wrong and stuff, and I think that was significant. I'll never forget the practical jokes and the laughter and having fun, but it's just some of the meaningful conversations about life. No, what's right and what's wrong. He was dialed in. He understood. His family raised him as a good man. He knew right from wrong. He was always very respectful, and so um, those are the conversations he had. That about what's fair, what's equitable,
Mhm.
and
Absolutely.
we were kind of, to be honest with you, Ronnie had a good life. I mean, he lived in a very nice neighborhood. He had some of the luxuries and a quality life that most well-to-do people have. So it wasn't like he was just struggling. He had a privileged life. When you look at all the things, the amenities that his mother and father provided for him, a car, not too many people get a car. So yeah, so it wasn't like he was just some person that's not good. He was raised to be successful, and he was.
Absolutely. I think that's really important to point out because uh, sometimes in the media, they like to spin a story that they may hear, whereas, well, this person may have been on drugs or come from a bad neighborhood or been in gang activity, anything of that sort. But that wasn't the case of Ron. You know, he came from a good family, a family that loved him, raised him how to be a scholar, an athlete. And that just wasn't the narrative of this person. And so it's important to put that information out. So I appreciate you for sharing that point.
Yeah. Well, I think you guys are doing a fantastic job of keeping his name and legacy alive. And I really believe it's not so far away that we've forgotten about Ronnie. It's still conversation and really just having this discussion, a nonprofit partnering with the individuals that you're partnering with. This is going to be very successful. And again, we'll save lives and make a difference. I mean, and that's really Ronnie's legacy.
Absolutely. And that's absolutely our goal here. We are committed to saving lives, further educating anyone that can help be a part of this movement that we have here. And ultimately, like we've already said, keeping the legacy of Ron Settles alive. So as we close, do you have any last words that you would like to share with us and to our public? Any last fond memories, any future endeavors?
No, I'd like to thank you again for allowing me to speak or talk about Ronnie. I'm very, I mean, the Strong family, I mean, we have a long history of being in the choir and stuff. So there's a bond there. What you guys are doing is phenomenal. And I think you're just scratching the surface. It's going to be some great work, but I think God will bless this into something that's going to be major. I mean, this is going to be huge. They're going to be talking about Ronnie Settles way after I'm gone, because it's going to have an impact. And I know you guys will honor his legacy and the family. So thank you for you guys doing what you do and staying close as a family, holding on to those characteristics that allowed you guys to get through such a traumatic period. That doesn't change. Family first.
Thank you so much for those warm words. Thank you for sharing those memories with us. And we just greatly appreciate you. And we would love to also, if possible, partner with the church in any way that we can to continue to get the word out about our scholarship fund and Ronnie's legacy as well.
I can promise you that I'm at your service, and whatever it takes is what we'll do.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our guests that are welcoming and listening in on this interview at this time with Mr. Wayne Chaney Sr. We greatly appreciate your time.
Blessing.
Right now, All right. Thank you so much. And we are going to go ahead and turn it back over to our president, Donna Woodley, and she is going to close out for us.
Wow. I think last week, Mr. Chaney, I was like, I'm rocking over here. I just thank you so much for being here. You are a true blessing to just, at the very least, to see your face and know that you were close with Ronnie. It's been a great pleasure listening to you guys talk today. So thank you so much for your time. We don't take it lightly, and we really appreciate you sharing that information and also wanting to still be involved with us as we move forward. Yes. And we definitely receive your blessing over this over our foundation. We really wanted to help people in the future and to really impact how this country and just how the world moves going forward with all that we've seen, all the injustice that we've seen. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you to Annie for some great questions with Mr. Chaney. Thank you to our viewers. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you tuning in. Tomorrow, we will have the last part of our talk with Ms. Cynthia Kirkland, excuse me. And we're looking forward to speaking with her on tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'd like to remind you to like, follow, share, and donate. We have a website. It's www.ronsettlesmemorialfoundation.org. And we have several giving platforms. Our giving platforms are PayPal, Givelify, Venmo, and Cash App. Feel free to donate to those. Your continued financial support and just overall support is very valuable to us and very valuable to the future of this foundation. It's never too late to donate to our scholarship fund. And we really thank you for being here today. We will leave this flyer up for about a minute so that you can take a picture of it or however you need to retain this information. And we look forward to seeing you on tomorrow. I hope you guys have a safe, healthy, and wealthy week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.